Yeah, if you'd like to.
Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of the Licensing, Liquor and Gambling Panel being held on Wednesday, the 23rd of September 2020. The first item of business is the appointment of the chairman. Are there any nominations, please?
I nominate Councillor Tony Boto.
I'll second that nomination.
Thank you. Councillor Boto will take the chair for this hearing. Many thanks.
Muted, Tony.
Is that better?
Yes.
Right, thank you very much, I said, and welcome everybody to the meeting. We've now reached item 3. I'm now calling for any apologies for absence.
There are none, Chairman.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Chairman, are you able to increase your volume? We're not hearing you very well, or I'm not hearing you very well.
That's affirmative.
Is that better?
Marginally.
Slightly.
Just 1 second.
It may be the position of the microphone rather than increasing your volume.
I can, that means actually plugging in a microphone, which might delay things. Is that an issue?
Okay.
My microphone is set to maximum volume, but it doesn't seem to be responding. Is that any better now?
That's slightly better.
Yep.
Okay. We'll start. If there's a problem, I'll have to take a short break and go and get a microphone. Is that okay, everybody?
Yes, that's fine now.
Okay, thank you. Right. Could I ask Democratic Service introduce the panel members and then the other parties? Democratic Service will explain legal advisor may take part in the panel discussions when necessary to provide advice to parties.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just clarify that no members have got any declarations of interest in this item?
Agreed.
None.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. The panel for today are Councillors Tony Boto, Barbara Jenny and Councillor Glenville Greenwood Smith. We also have present Rita Groves, the Licensing Enforcement Officer for ENC, Emma Matthews, the Licensing Compliance Officer for ENC, and we also have observing today's hearing Councillor Bert Jackson, who is a member of the Licensing Committee. We also have present on the telephone Mrs. Padder, who has made objections to the application, and Vicky Ray, who has also made objections to the application. And we also have Mr. John Birch, who is the agent for the applicant. We also have present Louise Della Valois, who is the legal advisor to the panel. She may take part in the panel where necessary to provide advice to all parties and answer any questions. She will also provide advice to the panel when they are considering their decision and their reasoning, but will not be involved in making the final decision. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. This panel has been convened to consider an application for a new premises licence for Tony's News, High Street, Earthling Borough, where objections have been received. I would like to ask Rita Groves, the Licensing Enforcement Officer, to report on the application.
Thank you, Chairman. As mentioned, we are here to consider an application for a new premises licence for Tony's News from Earthling Borough. The application was received on the 14th of August 2020. I can confirm that the appropriate notice was displayed and the advertisement was displayed as required. The matters for which a premises licence is sought are just purely for the supply of alcohol, Monday to Sunday from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, and these are for off sales of alcohol only. The opening of hours of the premises will be from 5 a.m. in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. We received no representations from Child Protection, Fire, Police, Trading Standards, Home Office, Health Authority, Erthling Borough Town Council, Environmental Protection, Licensing or Planning, but we do have representations from members of the public. There were 3 representations from local residents who are particularly concerned with public nuisance caused by antisocial behaviour in the area, and there is 1 representation from a person whose parents reside in Erthling Borough. This representation has been submitted on the grounds of all 4 of the licensing objectives, and all representations can be seen in full at Appendix C of your pack. I have included policy and guidance sections in the report for you to consider, and that is the report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Do the panel members have any questions of Mrs. Groves?
None from me, Chairman. None from me, Chairman. Thank you.
I'd like to ask Mr. John Birch, the representative of the agent, if he has any questions of Mrs. Groves concerning the report only. Mr. Birch.
No, sir, thank you.
Yep. Do the panel members have any further questions to put to Mrs. Groves?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Can I just ask one question? Mrs. Groves, is this a brand new application or has one been granted previously?
This is a brand new application.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Right, Mr. Birch, before I ask you to speak, no, I beg your pardon. I now ask you to speak in support of the application, Mr. Birch. Thank you.
Thank you, members. I make this application on behalf of my client, Mr. H.D. Patel, who we call Hemang Patel. Prior to serving the notices, I carried out a risk assessment of the area. I studied the council's licensing policy document and the guidance under section 182 of the Licensing Act, and I prepared a draft operating schedule, which I submitted and discussed with the police licensing officer, PC Dave Bryan. And as you will see, there were no comments from PC Bryan, but then certainly no representation, and as Mrs. Groves has said, no representations from any other responsible or statutory authority. Hemang Patel is an experienced man. Subject to the grant of a licence by yourselves, he intends to purchase the freehold of Tony's and live on the premises with his family. He would be leaving a well-established family-run convenience store in Northampton, so he's well versed in being alert to any potential problems, and he knows how to promote the licensing objectives. On completion, we intend to continue to open at 5 o'clock and over time to bring that forward to 6. We wish to sell alcohol ancillary and expand the existing range of products. Our target customer base is the daily shopper, those that buy sufficient for the day. And the sale of alcohol during our opening times fits with your own licensing policy document at 2.2. For example, shift workers whose day is ending at 6 o'clock, and they welcome the ability to purchase a small daily shopping basket. That shopping basket might include a couple of cans of beer or a bottle of wine. Our experience shows responsible retailing will not breach any of the licensing objectives. Excuse my chest. Our intended terminal hour of 10 p.m. is intended to secure the licensing objectives and to not cause public nuisance. Members, you asked for presentations in your notes to not exceed 5 minutes. I will not go through the operating schedule, but the proposed conditions, which are here for you to approve, amend or refuse, are in the operating schedule at pages 15 and 16. That is a brief summary of the application. Being now aware that you do have people who have made representations present, perhaps I would pause, sir.
Thank you. Could I ask a question, Mr. Birch, regarding the application? You state that Mr. Patel has a business in Northampton currently with a convenience store. Would he be giving up that particular activity in favour of the new store, or would he be running both stores in the new proposal?
I should have made clear, and I'm sorry, that the business of which he's part in Northampton is primarily run and owned by his brother. But it is Hemang Patel's intention to move into these premises and run them at his sole means of employment and income.
Right, okay. And I presume, therefore, operating with his brother, he's fully conversant with licensing law, has had training, etc., on licensing activity, including the under 25 scheme and the refusal book, etc., etc.
Yes, so he holds a personal license, and the operating schedule does show how we intend to secure the licensing objectives relative to Tony's premises.
Thank you. And just for clarification, perhaps hard to answer, but I understand the existing store is newsagent and tobacconist and has been for many years. That's been the sole activity. Does Mr. Patel have some idea as to what proportion of sales he would anticipate would be in the convenience side versus the newsagent side, or not?
I can't really give you a percentage. There is a plan of the premises. We don't intend to be solely an off license. It is ancillary. The plan shows a chiller. The premises have an area that is not intended to be included on the premises license, included on the plan, which currently operates as a barber's. And there is an intention, if ever we can get the lawyers to get us to completion, that Tony, Tony, whose surname I do apologise, I have forgotten, the existing operator, will be staying involved in the barber's business for some period which I cannot define.
Okay. Thank you. Last panel members, if they have questions of Mr. Birch, please.
I have no questions at this time, Chairman. Thank you.
Can I ask, will Mr. Patel operate the business himself, or will there be other employees? How many employees, basically?
I can't give you a precise answer, but certainly the prime mover will be Hemang Patel with his wife, subject to looking after children of school age. The shop, I think, currently has 2 staff. I wouldn't envisage more than 2 staff, but it is not a question that I can answer absolutely precisely. But all the staff will be trained.
Okay, thank you very much.
Could I ask Mrs. Groves if she has questions of Mr. Birch, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I have no questions.
I have one. I've thought of something I'd like to clarify, if I may, Chairman.
Very good. Yes.
Mr. Birch, you mentioned in the operating schedule and your words just now indicated that you are perhaps taking over Tony's next door. There is an adjoining door which you refer to. Are you intending to eventually move the shop into that area and essentially double it in size? In the meantime, how are you going to control people moving from one business to another through that door?
Yes, sir. On the plan, 52 and 54 front the street, they are part of the premises intended to be licensed, and the rear part of 54 is currently the barbers, which we not, and the operating schedule suggests that alcohol will be prohibited to drink into the barbers, because that would constitute drinking on the premises. I think it may be something that can be dealt with well locally, particularly if the existing operator of the business is staying involved in the barbers. But I'm not going to give you a time limit on his involvement.
No, I wouldn't expect a time limit. You made that clear earlier, and thank you for your answer. That concludes my question, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Do the panel members have any other further questions of Mr. Birch?
Are lay people allowed to actually question Mr. Birch?
Yes. No problem.
Hello, this is Mrs. Padder. Am I allowed to ask Mr. Birch questions?
I see no reason why not. No. Go ahead. Yes.
Sorry. I would like to ask Mr. Birch a few questions. Coming from a convenience store background, I actually had a shop in Swansea, which was over 2,000 square feet, and it was a very large convenience store with quite a large off license. So I have the experience of having a personal license, being a premises license holder, and also being the premises supervisor. I would like to say that when we did our operating schedule, we actually were able to let the public view it. When I tried to view it online, I wasn't able to do so. And the other thing Mr. Birch is also saying is the fact that nobody has raised objections there's been no feedback from the police, environmental services, or trading standards, etc., etc. Could it not be that the reason they've had no feedback is due to coronavirus? The emphasis and relevance has been given more to other pressing matters rather than the operating schedule and the licensing for Tony's News.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear half of that.
I think that's probably a question for Mrs. Groves to answer, that particular question.
Please do make a comment on that.
If I may make comment, Chairman, the application is available for members of the public to view. The licensing unit do make that available to anybody that requests. Normally we would allow people to come to the council offices, but obviously due to COVID that is more difficult, but we do make all applications available, and our licensing unit has been fully staffed for the whole of COVID. With regards to
sorry to interrupt.
Go on.
I was going to say, when I looked online on the first application, there was only relevance about who the person was applying for the license. There was no operating schedule, as in what was going to be happening in regards to safeguarding of children, public nuisance, what steps were going to be there. Because I remember when I had to apply for my premises license, I had to actually stipulate what I was going to do. So I was just wondering whether all these things were put forward for members of the public to view, because I didn't view it. I didn't see any on time.
Yeah, they are. They're all in the application, and the application is allowed to be viewed by members of the public. The operating schedule doesn't show on the public register, and that doesn't for anybody. But had you on the blue notice and in the advert, it does say that if you want to view the application, contact the local authority. Had you contacted the licensing unit, they would have given you the full application to view.
Right. I did ring in, but I don't live locally. I actually live in Warwickshire. It's my parents who actually lives in Irthing Borough. And my experience, as I've said in this email, I've actually been coming backwards and forwards to Irthing Borough. What I didn't actually mention, which I forgot to mention, was the fact in 2002 and to 2004, I did actually reside in Irthing Borough for 2 years, and I actually worked in DWP, Northampton and Rushden. So yes, I do have a fair knowledge of the area.
Mrs. Padder, if I may come in here, I think Mrs. Groves has given you a response.
No, that's fine.
I'm about to ask you if you'd like to speak. Anyway, so if you could reserve your comments to your.
Yeah, sorry, I apologise.
After to speak, that would be helpful, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that's exactly what I'm going to do now. Is to ask Mrs. Padder and I think it's Ms. Ray to make a short comment on their objections to the application. I think you've probably made some of those already, but if you'd like to make a few comments now, we can hear. Thank you.
I think I've actually put my objections quite already down on my emails, but just to basically summarise, for me, having seen the change in Erskine Borough, I feel that there are already more than enough establishments selling alcohol already, and I feel that another establishment is not needed, especially with the new Aldi's in Erskine Borough and the Co-op. You've got Tesco's, you've got quite a lot within a quarter of a mile. So that was one of the reasons. The other reason is children grouped together opposite Tony's News. There's a little garden over there. And where Tony's News is located, it's on the high street, it's on a raised level. There's very little room for the public to actually walk past those shops. So there is a safety aspect, the traffic, and the little lay-by where cars are parked. It's already difficult enough to actually get your car in and out and to park down there. And with antisocial behaviour on the rise, that was a concern for me.
Okay, thank you. We have those comments in our information pack. We'll obviously consider those when we discuss the application shortly.
Thank you.
Ray, do you have some comments to make?
Nothing more to reiterate than what the other member of public has just said. Okay. I take it, obviously you're going to take into account what I put in my email. And it was mainly around, I've got young children myself, and
yes.
That was my concern. I'm a resident of Erflin Borough, drive through the high street numerous times within the day. Do see little gatherings of children, teenagers around the rest gardens. I'm on Facebook pages of Erflin Borough, and the amount of comments we're getting with regards to unruly behaviour, people going up to the wreck, which is just behind those shops, drinks, drugs. I was more concerned for the safety of our children in Erflin Borough, and obviously the competition that's going to unfold between, obviously it'll be competitors and maybe cheaper alcohol. I know I've been into shops where children or teenagers, those of drinking age that have been banned from certain shops, are now going to have another shop that they can try going into. I respect that Mr. Patel obviously knows the laws surrounding alcohol, supplying alcohol. So hopefully everyone can, well, I'm just concerned really. My concern is for the children and the residents and just unruly behaviour that I can see happening already. Okay. That's just as a member of public. That's me, Ben.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to ask Mrs. Groves if she'd like to make any short final statement, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I have nothing further to add.
Okay. Mr. Birch, would you like to make a short final statement?
I'd like to discuss the representations with you, sir. I'm just still slightly concerned for Mrs. Padder. Has she actually seen a copy of the operating schedule? Because if not, I'd be very happy to read out the contents. Firstly. Secondly,
I'm happy for you to read the contents out if that would help, yes.
Would it help Mrs. Padder? Has she seen the operating schedule?
She says she has not seen it, so perhaps you might.
I'll read them out if I may. And secondly, would just like to correct the service document process. Electronically, as an agent, I only serve notice on the licensing authority. They forward it to the responsible authorities, and each of those responsible authorities has 28 days in which to reply. And I can assure the members that my experience of a full-time job over a wide area, they certainly do reply. The operating schedule agreed with the police is that under the Prevention of Crime and Disorder, a fully working, maintained system of CCTV must be capable of recording and storing images. The system must record at all time the premises is open to the public, and the images must be restored for 31 days, must cover the entrance and all areas used by the public. A person must be on the premises all the time they're open to enable viewing of recordings on a request from an officer from a responsible authority, and subsequent full downloads must be available within the following 24 hours. Alcohol may only be sold in sealed containers. Spirits must be displayed behind the sales point and not available by self-service. No alcohol may be taken into the adjoining retail premises internally accessed from number 52, forming the rear part of 54 High Street, which is marked on the plan. A record of staff members must be kept that includes the names and addresses and all their employment details. This, members, is really directed at the employment, to prevent the employment of illegals. Under public safety, risk assessments required under separate legislation will be maintained. We do supply and deal with fire risk and health and safety. Public nuisance, the premises licence holder will be aware of any potential for the purchase of alcohol by street drinkers, and if there's any evidence, we refuse service. Protection of children from harm, the mandatory age verification policy will include the Challenge 25 policy. Signs will be displayed on the premises. Staff will be made aware. A register confirming they understood the policy will be signed and maintained. Staff will be trained in relation to the alcohol sales. A copy of the syllabus will be signed and kept. A refusals register will be maintained. And I added a note that during the preparation of an application for grant of a licence, consideration was given to the proximity of a school, and the proposed layout of the premises will display alcohol in the area furthest from the entrance door.
Thank you, Mr. Birch.
That is there, sir, and I would like to comment by way of sum up on the representations that you've received. May I continue?
Yes.
Representations from those concerned tell you it will exacerbate an existing public order problem. I'd like to give you 10 lines about a cumulative impact assessment. There are no grounds for opposing this application on the grounds of the number of licensed premises in Irthlingborough. A cumulative impact policy may be published by the licensing authority to limit the number or types of applications in the event of a density, if that density is having a cumulative impact and leading to problems. But it has to be published in the licensing authority's licensing policy document, and it must be set out on an evidential basis. The question of young people gathering in the park, I've been there this morning, remarkably clean, very well maintained, so clean I thought perhaps the daily litter pick had taken place, but not the case. Extraordinary in the litter bins was the majority were energy drinks. Young people gather in open spaces. They're not necessarily drunk, and groups of noisy youngsters are not peculiar to Irthlingborough. I do submit that those that make representations don't provide evidence that it's alcohol alone that's causing the problems in the resting gardens. Drugs will be playing a part. Just last night, the Chronicle and Echo reports 9 arrests for drug offences in Thrapston. Many, and so that my submission to you is that the primary mechanism to deal with public order in this case, as stated in the Licensing Act, that it is not the primary mechanism to control anti-behaviour. Powers exist within the Crime and Policing Act and its guidance, which is on the internet. So the representations come to you without evidence. I was concerned to see a comment on page 27 that youngsters are standing outside a national retailer's premises. I'm not going to name them, it goes on the public record. Proxy purchasing is a problem. We are aware of it and we will be alert to it. Mrs. Padder was quite right to say to you, people who've been banned from other premises and can't get served will turn up at Tony's. Well, we are ready for them, members. I didn't find anything else in the representations other than need and public order, which I again claim is not verified. I can comment no further, and as a final statement to say to you, in the council's own licensing policy document, there are about 10 references that might be considered when adjudicating on this application, as well as the guidance. The guidance is just that, the decision is yours. But I'm not going to engage you, members, in a mass of legal references, but if you think it helpful, I'm happy to do so, because I'm sure that when you retire, you will receive legal advice. Members, if you accept our pre-application consultation and note the lack of response from any responsible authority, then your discretion is engaged on the single issue of whether or not Hemang Patel will breach the public nuisance licensing objective. Thanks for your time, members.
Thank you.
Chairman, may I ask a question?
I'm just about to ask Mrs. Padder and Mrs. Ray if they have a comment. I'll come to you, Councillor, if I may.
Thank you.
Yes, Mrs. Padder, you had this other final short statement to make?
Mr. Birch is saying that basically I've made representations and I haven't actually taken into account that about the antisocial behaviour, that it's not just relating to drink. Well, I did actually provide some statistics because I looked into it quite a bit. For June this year, the highest statistic for Erthlingborough in the postcode for Tony's News was antisocial behaviour. My concern, and it still is a concern, it's cheap alcohol. That's fine. I understand what he's saying, that you are allowed to have competition. I understand that. Like I said, from a business point of view and as a layperson, my concerns here are where Tony's is situated. It is on a raised level with a very small footpath. There's a lot of traffic. There's a small lay-by. There's the resting garden, but I don't know what they're called, where children group together. That is a major concern. They run into the road.
Yes,
if you are saying, if we are saying that everything has been met in the licensing objectives, I would actually put, as a lay member of the public, no, those all the objectives have not been met on public safety.
Well, Mrs. Padder,
the location.
We will consider these when we retire, and you have made these points. They have been noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Ray, Ms. Ray, any further comments, final statements?
Nothing more to add. Just please take into account that at the moment, school children do enter Tony's quite a lot, as I did growing up in Erthlingborough, just for the penny mix-ups. So you are going to get a lot of footfall with regards to younger children, and I appreciate that you said alcohol will be served out the way, but it is quite a small shop. So in regards to it being furthest away, the furthest away is not that far. Just take that into consideration, just the well-being of the local children, and just the type of public that you're going to be encountering coming into the shop. I mean, like I said, there are a lot of unsavoury characters. I know you get them in most areas. That was my main concern, just more unsavoury characters coming out of the woodwork, going to the off licences, cheap alcohol, that kind of thing. But nothing more to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. Right, Councillor Greenwood-Smith, you believe I wanted to answer a question of Mr. Birch. In fact, do you have any final questions of Mr. Birch or Mrs. Grove?
Thank you. I don't have a question of Mr. Birch, but through you, I'd like to thank him for reading out the rules for us. I would reassure him that we are fully trained on an annual basis and have actually read them for ourselves as well. So, but thank you for reinforcing those points. They are well made. Can I ask our legal representative, please, if the questions of procedure that were raised earlier, I should say that I am satisfied with the answers, but I'd like a ruling that they don't stand in the way of us making our decision today in terms of the dissemination of information questions that were raised earlier.
Is this in regard to the fact that no representations have been received from the statutory authorities?
No, this is questions raised by Mrs. Padder over the availability of information, which I would reiterate. I am satisfied with the officer's answer to the question. I just want to ensure that it doesn't stand in the way of us making a decision this morning.
No, the procedure for obtaining the full application is clear. That if they require a copy of the application, to contact the local authority. If that had been done, as Ms. Groves has stated, the application would have been provided in full.
I'm grateful for your assistance. Thank you.
May I ask one more question? May I interject here? Sorry.
I'm afraid. Sorry, who's that speaking?
Mrs. Padder.
And I'm afraid we finished that now. We're now on.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Chairman, could I ask a question? I'd like to ask a question of the objectors, if that's all right.
You may do that.
Can I ask either Mrs. Padder or Miss Ray, the antisocial behaviour which appears to be attributed to alcohol sales, from the representations that we've received, nothing has come from either the police or Irthling Borough Town Council. I presume these matters are reported to the police. Can you tell me what response you may have got?
When I looked into this application, I looked
That's
at the,
Mrs. Padder, is it?
Yeah, sorry, this
Yes.
is Mrs. Padder. I looked at the information on the Northamptonshire Police website for crime statistics. I did a fair bit of research that way. And also, like I said, I have lived in Irthling Borough. I've actually worked in Northamptonshire. And also, I may not live here anymore. I come to visit my mother every weekend and I stay a minimum of 2 to 3 nights with my mum. So I'm in and out of the high street. So it's not as if I just literally stay at my mum's place. I am shopping in Northamptonshire. I go shopping in Rushden, Wellingborough. I go to Stanwick. I go to all these local areas. So I'm very au fait with the area. And when I did live in Irthling Borough, and this is a concern for me regarding antisocial behaviour and the
excuse me, Mrs. Padder, but I understand the issues, and I've got the crime figures in front of me that you submitted.
Yes.
Can you just tell me, from your knowledge, has the matter been reported to the police, and has there been some sort of response from them?
I've not reported any matters to the police. Actually, no, tell a lie. Years ago, my mother, this is where it was reported to the police on numerous occasions. My mum, and this is when my father was alive, my mother lives in Windmill Road. She was having a lot of children who were coming under the influence of alcohol, and they were actually harassing my parents. And they once actually did it when I was there, and I had to ring the police, and the police actually had to go to a few families. I think it was the road was Nicholas Road, and go to see the families because the local residents knew who the children were. My parents didn't know their names, and actually go and speak to the parents. So yes, there was a time when matters were being reported to the police regarding antisocial behaviour with children being under the influence of drink.
Okay, and do you know from your knowledge whether it's been reported to Ertling Borough Town Council so that they can address the issue?
I would not know if it was reported to the town council. It was definitely reported to Spire Homes, who actually own the sheltered accommodation on Windmill Road. They knew about it because my parents actually had to have CCTV cameras installed because of the harassment. And also lately, just recently actually, funnily enough, this is happening, and I have reported it to Spire Homes, was people are having, not only my mother, other residents on Windmill Road have had their doors knocked at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and people coming to buy drugs at these residences.
I feel this is a matter that the police would address much more than.
So we notified Spire Homes, and I think they were going to liaise with the police. That was the last thing I heard, and that was about 6 weeks ago, I think it was.
Okay, thank you very much. May I also ask a quick question of Mr. Birch?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Can you confirm that any alcohol sales from the premises would be supplementary to the main business? It would not be a main focus of the business. It would just be supplementary.
I can confirm that 100%, ma'am. We will maintain the very buoyant newsagents business, the business that currently sells greeting cards, and we will extend that range of products with alcohol entirely as an ancillary.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that answers my questions.
Fine, thank you very much. That concludes then the questions for today. Thank you all very much for attending. We are now going to retire and consider our decision, which we'll give due consideration to, with all the points that have been made this morning. We'll revise your decision. That will be sent to all parties within 5 working days from today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can you clarify, sir? Are you going to decide today? Oh, it's gone.
We'll reach a decision. And that
thank you.
In 5 working days. Yes?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.